ask you another one. Do you believe that trial by military commission is appropriate for U.S. citizens accused of terrorism in the United States?
I don't know that I ever specifically opined on that question.
I don't know whether you did or not. I'm asking you the question.
I don't think it would be appropriate for me to answer that kind of hypothetical. That's something that could come before the courts.
Well, I'm not sure that's a valid reason that a trial by a military commission for a U.S. citizen accused of terrorism could be held by a military commission as opposed to a court. So you're saying you don't have an opinion on that subject?
No, I'm saying that, that kind of a claim that a military commission would be inappropriate is something that someone who was contesting that procedure would then file in a court, and I don't think it would be appropriate for me as a nominee to a court to opine on that open question.
Let me move on.
You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this is your Red Pill News for Thursday, April 4th. You guys remember that clip from a couple weeks ago? My friend Methods here had snipped that out of a confirmation hearing for a gentleman who was for a gentleman who was nominated for the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Well, as we have spoken about before, there are a couple of interesting developments. The Ninth Circuit Court is being essentially remade in the image that President Trump likes, and it's in the image that we like, that our favorite Anon is liking. So we're going to check up on some information related to that and some other good developments, but first, a quick word from my sponsor. With the things we see as Americans today, like the caravans bombarding the border, we got people in Venezuela without electricity or food, and of course horrible stories of human trafficking throughout the country, and the crazy surge in popularity for socialism. The future of America is something we have to fight for. The safety of ourselves and our family is no different. And one of the easiest things you can invest in for home protection is a Patriot flashlight. It's simply one of the best flashlights on the market. For peace of mind, the Patriot flashlight is also one of the best values available. Users have reported this flashlight to be an all-in-one lifesaver and wouldn't go anywhere without it. It's lightweight but very durable, compact, but great for handling all emergencies. You'll never waste money on batteries again. The Survivor Tactical Flashlight is solar-powered. It lights up the darkest of nights with this powerful 500-lumen flashlight that you can see from miles away. It has a life-saving emergency strobe light setting along with 4 other unique lighting modes. You can use it also to charge your phone anywhere, anytime with the Survivor's USB port. Now it also has a compass, a rope and wire cutter, has solar-powered recharging, high and low beam LED modes, and a glass breaking hammer, and all of that, and it's still lightweight and durable. The Patriot flashlight is the perfect gift for you and your family. Now, there's a limited supply, and this is the very last chance to get yours at a discount before they sell out. So take advantage now and give you and your family the gift of night protection. And you can save 20% off with the code REDPILL78. All right, so back to today's opener with my friend Methods. So he notes here that 2 California lawyers have been nominated to seats on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, and they've passed through the Senate Judiciary Committee Thursday morning despite opposition from the state's 2 Democratic senators. Now, of course, they don't want to see the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals torn away from its liberal leanings. They have been notorious in blocking things that President Trump wants to do, or, advancing the interests of America and its citizens. So right here, this is from the Recorder. It says 2 California lawyers have been nominated, and they were vehemently opposed by the 2 Democratic state senators. But on Thursday, Feinstein also criticized Collins for only answering Republican questions during his confirmation hearing regarding his stance on certain issues while refusing to answer questions from Democrats. Now, right here, Dianne Feinstein's reluctance to allow him onto the court is because of his answer right there to whether or not it is lawful to have American citizens tried by a military tribunal. Well, if they do something like what she mentions here, that essentially makes them enemy combatants. And we know from precedent that has been well set and has been in play since that fateful day in September many years ago. This is how it goes. This is how you roll with the punches. If you want to play with the big boys and you want to go up against the United States of America, then you're going to find yourself in front of a tribunal. And Methods here says this is definitely a major reason why they are opposing these Ninth Circuit nominations. They are panicking because Collins refused to give his opinion on civilians being tried in military tribunals. And you know what? Collins can say whatever he wants. He gets to answer however he wants because these are his opinions. And as he said, the question is not necessarily for a judge that is, up for nomination. This is a question for the judge that would be overseeing such a case. And the lawyer for the individual, Feinstein, who might be sitting before a military tribunal for their treasonous and seditious behavior, they're the ones who are going to have to ask the judge to make that determination. Well, guess what? As I said, based on years of precedent and the way we have handled these treasonous and seditious characters in the past, Rosenbergs, I think that it's a little too late. It's a little too late to get sweaty now, Diane. Oh, we've got some great replies to Methods here. What is this? The retard is strong in this. Hillary says that the Marines rejected her because she wore glasses and she was a woman. Why isn't the mainstream media demanding proof of this outrageous whopper? Yeah, I wonder why. And did Hillary ever really apply for the Marines? Let's just see what time it is. Time for pain. There's Rachel Maddow crying. Oh, Melissa says, I love that the Ninth Circuit is being gutted and replaced with real judges that aren't activists posing as judges. Excellent point. Excellent point. We need to have some real judges on this court who are going to uphold the rule of law and not go in with the idea that they're going to change it by interjecting their own twisted ideals. Next, from the Gateway Pundit, a deep state leak. Mueller's team of angry Democrats say Trump report more damaging than Bill Barr reveals. Well, we know how the Democrats are. We knew this was coming. Mueller and his goons are scrambling to take control of the narrative. Mueller's team of Democrat donors are reportedly frustrated because their special counsel's report on Trump is more damaging than what Attorney General Bill Barr has revealed, according to a deep state leak on Wednesday. Now, of course, they're going to try to make it as damaging as possible because they couldn't find anything, but they still want to defame Trump. They want to use this as ammunition in the Democrats' arsenal. The New York Times cited government officials and others familiar with Mueller's investigators' simmering frustrations Wednesday, fueling conspiracy theories that Bill Barr is covering for Trump. Some of Mueller's investigators have told associates that Barr failed to adequately portray their report on Trump and that their findings were more damaging than the president than Barr revealed. Some of Mueller's investigators have told associates that Barr failed to adequately portray their report on Trump and that their findings were more damaging for the president than Barr revealed. Or rather, the way they were written were more damaging for the president. I would have to say that the very fact that the principal conclusions show that A, there's no collusion, and B, there is no obstruction because there is no collusion. What else do you need to know? Anything else is just character assassination. Mueller's goons are frustrated that Bill Barr shaped the narrative of their special counsel's report when he released a 4-page summary last weekend revealing that there was zero evidence that Trump's camp colluded with Russia. Mr. Barr has said he would move quickly to release the nearly 400-page report, but needed time to scrub out confidential information. The special counsel's investigators have already written multiple summaries of the report, and some team members believe that Mr. Barr should have included more of their material in the 4-page letter. Stomping their feet and crossing their arms. He wrote on March 24th, laying out their main conclusions. According to government officials familiar with the investigation, Mr. Barr only briefly cited the special counsel's work in his letter. Well, It's a summary letter, guys. Gonna have to get over it. However, the special counsel's office never asked Mr. Barr to release the summaries soon after he received the report, a person familiar with the investigation said. And the Justice Department quickly determined that the summaries contain sensitive information like classified material, secret grand jury testimony, and information related to current federal investigations that must remain confidential, according to 2 government officials. The Democrats and their stenographers in the media were stunned when Attorney General Bill Barr released a 4-page summary of Mueller's principal findings on the Russia investigation and concluded that Trump did not conspire with the Kremlin. Did not conspire with the Kremlin. Let me spell it out. Mueller also left it up to AG Barr to decide whether Trump obstructed justice. No collusion and no obstruction, Barr concluded. Wild theories about Bill Barr began to fly, and the Dems turned their ire toward the newly confirmed Attorney General. The Dems immediately got to work and used every tool in their arsenal to obtain Mueller's full report. The House Judiciary Committee authorized a subpoena for Mueller's full report without redactions on Wednesday in a 24-17 vote. The Constitution charges Congress with holding the president accountable for alleged official misconduct. That job requires us to evaluate the evidence for ourselves, not the Attorney General's summary, not a substantially redacted synopsis, but the full report and the underlying evidence, House Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler said in his opening statement Wednesday. Nadler also said that so far, Bill Barr has refused to work with him to help obtain access to the materials. Mueller's team interviewed 500 witnesses and issued 2,800 subpoenas in an investigation that spanned over 675 days with a total of 19 high-powered lawyers and 40 FBI agents. Under special counsel rules, Mueller is to give Attorney General Barr a confidential report. Barr is redacting people's names who were not indicted. The law protects people in the report who have not been indicted. The law protects people in the report who have not been indicted, especially if it's grand jury material. Alan Dershowitz, I've said this on the program many times, it's a crime to release grand jury material, but the Democrats don't care, without the approval of the courts, and it's even a crime, but the Democrats don't care, to release it to Congress without the approval of the courts. But the Democrats don't care, Alan Dershowitz said. Barr announced in a letter to Congress that he would be releasing Mueller's report with proper redactions mid-April, if not sooner. Come on, guys. We know how it is. We know you want to get this report. We know you want to see what you can use, what you can exploit in it to defame the president, to slander him further. President Trump really ought to have a gigantic libel case at the end of all this because they have done nothing but smear his name, talk poorly of his family, his children. How disgusting. These people going after his children. These people are sick. These people have zero moral fiber, and I am eagerly anticipating the end of this entire narrative. Let's get it over, guys. Here is another piece from the Daily Caller that I had to get to from the archive because I'm not a subscriber. That's kind of a bummer that we have to subscribe now. But this is talking about the red flags that were in these articles. The New York Times relied on anonymous, secondhand sources for a Wednesday report, pushing the narrative that Attorney General Barr is mishandling special counsel Robert Mueller's report on Russian collusion. The Times story Wednesday alleged that members of special counsel Robert Mueller's team believe that the report is actually much more damaging to President Donald Trump than Barr indicated in his summary of the report's principal conclusions last weekend. In making this claim, however, the Times seemingly did not interview anyone from Mueller's investigatory team who was unhappy. Instead, the Times spoke to government officials and others familiar with the team members' frustration, all anonymously. None of the sources for the article are further characterized, and none were directly quoted for the piece. As relayed by these secondhand sources, the members of Mueller's team are said to be upset over Barr's decision not to include the multiple summaries of the report they drafted in his letter to Congress. Two government officials quickly pushed back on the idea that the summaries could be included, noting that the summaries contain sensitive information like classified material, secret grand jury testimony, and information related to current federal investigations that must remain confidential. Right there. The Times piece does not reveal what other issues the Mueller team members allegedly have with Barr's conclusions. In fact, their own sources declined to provide practically anything of detail. The officials and others interviewed declined to flesh out why some of the special counsel's investigators viewed their findings as potentially more damaging for the president than Mr. Barr explained, the Times reports. It was also unclear how widespread the vexation is among the special counsel team, which included 19 lawyers, about 40 FBI agents, and other personnel. The Washington Post released a similar report that quoted sources but still did not talk directly to members of the special counsel's team. Notably, Barr said he was working directly with the special counsel's team on preparing the report for its release. One of the story's authors, Michael Schmidt, allowed the Times sources to be misrepresented repeatedly during an interview on MSNBC. Host Willie Geist predicted several of his questions on the idea that the Times spoke directly to members of Mueller's team, a falsehood that Schmidt did not correct on air. Schmidt also claimed that the sense of frustration among Mueller's team is less on the issue of collusion than it is on obstruction. Despite the fact that his report explicitly said his sources did not flesh out the reasons the report could be damaging to Trump. Schmidt's co-author, Mark Mazzetti, contradicted his colleague's assertion during an interview with CNN. Mazzetti told CNN that the members of the special counsel's team are frustrated because of details that are both on the obstruction of justice side as well as on the Russian conspiracy side. The Department of Justice responded to the Times story on Thursday, pushing back on the particular idea that Barr should have released the team's prepared summary of the report. Every page of the confidential report provided to Attorney General Barr on March 22nd was marked may contain material protected under Fed R. Crim P6E, a law that protects confidential grand jury information, and therefore could not be publicly released, Justice Department spokeswoman Carrie Kupek told the Daily Caller in a statement. The Times' Schmidt and Mazzetti were also responsible for another Russia bombshell report that imploded when former FBI Director James Comey disputed its content before Congress. In February 2017, the reporters claimed that U.S. intelligence officials had intercepted communications between members of the Trump campaign and senior Russian intelligence officials in the year leading up to the election. Comey characterized the story as almost entirely false during a June hearing, telling the Senate Intelligence Committee in the main it was not true. The Times opted to stand by the story. Well, what do you expect from fake news like the New York Times and the Washington Post? Typical with their anonymous sources, they have a story, they make it up, then they write a story about it. And then they put it out into the public consciousness. The people that read their trash rags, they see it, they intake, and they believe that it's true. But the thing is, almost universally, it never is. Sometimes I think they do take a nugget of truth, or perhaps they just decide to take rumors passed through the telephone line and then think that they're going to have a big scoop as a result. Well, every time that they have swung, they've missed. None of the stuff that they've put out was ever true. Ooh, always on the ball. Truth. Representative Gomer destroys Nadler and Democrat hacks. The only thing Orwell got wrong was the year. Boom! I love it. Representative Louis Gomer lit up Judiciary Chairman Nadler on Wednesday over the Democrat attempt to release the full Mueller report. Democrats are still searching for the elusive holy grail of Trump collusion with Russia. Are you a penitent man? A penitent man shall pass. They are looking in the wrong direction. More American voters today believe crooked Hillary colluded with foreign operatives than Trump did. Get that, guys. We're doing an article about that one next. Representative Louis Gomer says, what has gone on in this country did absolutely, unequivocally, no doubt about it, involve collusion of people at the highest level with a foreign entity to try to bring down a candidate and then bring down a sitting president. That was collusion between top FBI officials, justice officials, a former MI6 intelligence officer who has been discredited by those same justice officials, FBI officials, but they colluded with him to try to bring down a candidate and now a sitting president. Enough is enough. At some point, we've got to say what will be written in the annals of history of this country as an outrageous attempt at a real coup d'etat. It was unsuccessful. The truth came out and about who really colluded with foreign agents. And by the way, it did involve a Democrats campaign and a foreign agent who was colluding with some of Putin's agents. in all likelihood, as he was not even in Russia, but was talking by phone to Russian agents in his efforts to help the Clinton campaign and top justice officials bring down a sitting president. And for us to continue this outrageous assault on the office of President Trump or anybody in his family with Russia, and for us to continue this outrageous assault on the office of president, even after the truth has come out that there was no conspiracy by the Trump campaign or President Trump or anybody in his family with Russia, and to continue to push, enough is enough, for heaven's sake. Let's please move on. Obviously, the only thing he, George Orwell, got wrong was the year, because we've seen what the Obama administration did with those Orwellian abilities to spy on those American citizens. It's time to go back and clean up the mess that's been made. Awesome. Let's listen to Louis Gohmert say it himself.
Gentleman from Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to say, Mr. Ratcliffe, who I respect greatly, said that Mr. Barr accurately described and the Mueller report. We don't know that. That's why we want to see it, so we can know if he accurately did it. He talked about people who threw fire. He might be suggesting I'm one of those fire throwers. I want to find out if I was wrong, and I want the public to see it too. I yield back the balance of my time.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got to say, I've witnessed one of the proof positive of the brilliant mental acumen of our chairman as he explained adroitly how he was right 21 years ago and is right today. Just a work of beauty in that argument. As chairman said, 21 years ago, we should always remember this is a prosecutor's report. By its nature, it's one-sided. Also said it was salacious material, all kinds of material that it would be unfair to release. I would point out the gentleman didn't know exactly what all the material was at that time, and we don't know at this time either. In a February 1999 New York Times article, our current chairman called the Starr Report impeachment efforts a, quote, partisan coup d'etat, unquote. What has gone on in this country did absolutely, unequivocally, no doubt about it, involve collusion by people at the highest level with a foreign entity to try to bring down a candidate and then bring down a sitting president. That was collusion between top FBI officials, justice officials, a former MI6 intelligence officer who has been discredited by those same justice officials, FBI officials, but they colluded with him to try to bring down a candidate and now a sitting president. Enough is enough. At some point, we've got to say what will be written in the annals of history of this country as an outrageous attempt at a real coup d'etat was unsuccessful. The truth came out about who really colluded with foreign agents. And by the way, they did involve the Democrats' campaign and a foreign agent who was colluding with some of Putin's agents in all likelihood, as he was not even in Russia, but was talking by phone to Russian agents in his efforts to help the Clinton campaign and top justice officials bring down a sitting president.
Truth!
And for us to continue this outrageous assault on the office of president, even after the truth has come out that there was no conspiracy by the Trump campaign or President Trump or anybody in his family with Russia, and to continue to push, we're still going to make a big deal out of this. We can't stand the fact that the facts show It was the Democrats that colluded with foreign agents to try to change the outcome of the election. Enough is enough, for heaven's sake. Let's please move on. There was a time when I loved and appreciated the current chairman's desire to protect privacy rights. I saw that dramatically eroded during the Obama administration, but I am still hoping and praying that our now chairman's once great desire to protect privacy rights and to try to hold back the bounds of what Orwell described as happening now. Obviously, the only thing he got wrong was the year, because we've seen what the Obama administration did with those Orwellian abilities to spy on American citizens. It's time to go back and clean up the mess that's been made over years of abuse. And this subpoena, the subpoenas, is not what we need to be voting for. And I support my friend's amendment.
Is it just me, or did he just say subpoenas? There's only one subpoena, but it sounded like he said it to mock them. Yeah, Louis Gohmert really knows what he's talking about. And he is one of the only people in Washington who will truly speak the truth all the time. I would absolutely love to have Louis Gohmert representing me and my constituents in my district. I don't want to move down there just for that, but I would love to see Louis Gohmert in another higher level of office within the federal government. I think he could really get the job done if he had a certain bit of autonomy in a department. So, what do you guys think? I love Louis Gohmert. He's great, and I cannot wait to see the Democrats get their just desserts. All right, as I was saying, our next story shows that despite liberal media's best efforts, 47% of likely voters now believe that crooked Hillary was the candidate colluding with foreign operatives, because she was. Despite more than 2 years of the liberal media bloviating about Trump, Russia, 47% of Americans believe it was actually crooked Hillary, not Donald Trump, who was colluding with foreign operatives. Look at that. From Rasmussen, one of the only legitimate polling places left. Now that special counsel Robert Mueller has ruled out collusion between the Trump campaign and the Ruskies in 2016, voters, like senior Republicans, are turning a suspicious eye toward Hillary Clinton's campaign. That's right. Rasmussen reported via Russia Today. A new Rasmussen Reports national telephone and online survey finds that 47% of likely U.S. voters think Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign is more likely than President Trump's to have illegally colluded with foreign operatives. Only 47% of likely voters believe Trump was colluding with Russia. Those are stunning numbers, a stunning reversal. You know why, guys? Like I just said, it's because Hillary Clinton and her campaign were colluding with Russia. They are the ones who really did the collusion. Again, Alinsky tactics. Alinsky tactics. Marxist tactics. Accuse your opponent of doing that which you are doing. Hillary Clinton gave herself away years ago. And the people who don't know, who don't understand, they're the ones who are blind, because all they've been doing is listening to the liberal media, to the controlled narrative. Well, guess what, guys? The wall is breaking down, and the other wall is going up. All right, last minute addition to my video. Julian Assange is apparently to be kicked out of the Ecuadorian embassy within hours and arrested as the country does a deal with UK authorities to end his 7-year stay, sources claim. Julian Assange is set to be kicked out of Ecuador's London embassy and arrested within hours or days, WL said this morning. The website made the claims about its founder in a series of late-night tweets, citing unnamed sources in the Ecuadorian authorities as confirming Assange's 7-year stay would end imminently. Protesters began descending on the West London embassy after online calls for people to protect the controversial whistleblower. Mr. Assange claimed political asylum in the Knightsbridge embassy in June 2012 after he was accused of assault. against a woman in Sweden and has been there ever since. However, earlier this week, reports surfaced that the South American nation was tiring of his presence and claimed he had repeatedly violated the terms of his asylum. In their tweets, WL wrote, "A high-level source within the Ecuadorian state has told us that J.A. will be expelled within hours to days using the offshore scandal as a pretext, and that it has already had an agreement with the UK for his arrest." 2 hours later, they added they have secondary confirmation from another high-level source within the Ecuadorian state that Assange will be booted out imminently. Ecuador's government said they never comment on rumors. You can see there's people tented up outside the embassy there. There are lots of press outside the embassy now as they await him to be expelled. And I have a source who has people on their way to the embassy right now. So hopefully we're going to learn some more stuff firsthand. Mr. Assange's supporters claim the assault charges are a ruse to allow him to be detained so America can extradite him to trial for revealing highly sensitive government information on his website. Shortly after 2 a.m., protesters began arriving at the West London streets that surround the embassy. 2 cars pulled up and activists erected 7 tents on the pavement for the protesters to use. A young child sat in the passenger seat while members of the media took up position across the road. A single Metropolitan Police squad car kept watch at the growing group. The activists promoted a tweet by WL began their vigil, although nobody had heard from J.A. himself. The news of this possible imminent expulsion from the embassy comes after Ecuadorian President Lenin Moreno said on Tuesday that Assange has repeatedly violated the terms of his asylum in the Andean nation's London embassy. Mr. Moreno told Ecuadorian broadcasters that Assange cannot lie, or much less hack into private accounts or private phones under the terms of his asylum. The president said that photos of his bedroom with what he eats and how his wife and friends dance has been shared on social media. But he did not accuse WL of circulating hacked photos of his family and wiretapping his phone calls and private conversations. The president said we should ensure Mr. Assange's life is not at risk, but he's violated the agreement we have with him so many times. But the Ecuadorian government has previously said it believes WL of sharing the photos, some of which show photos which date back several years to when Moreno and his family lived in Geneva. Moreno said the terms restrict him from intervening in the politics of countries, or worse, friendly countries. The Ecuadorian government has directly referred to WL in a complaint to a special rapporteur for the right to privacy. On Tuesday, WikiLeaks tweeted that Moreno would take a decision about Mr. Assange's fate in the short term after it reported an offshore corruption scandal racking his government. The SA probe in which Mr. Assange was later dropped, but he fears he could be extradited to face charges in the United States, where federal prosecutors are investigating WL. Mr. Assange denied their claims, but refused to travel to Sweden to face them. He said traveling to this country was part of a ruse to extradite him to the U.S. due to his involvement in the leaking of a huge amount of classified documents in 2010. He says Ecuador is seeking to end his asylum and is putting pressure on him by isolating him from visitors and spying on him. Ecuador has said its treatment of Assange was in line with international law, but the situation cannot be extended indefinitely. In February, J.A. was issued with a new Australian passport, clearing the way for him to leave the Ecuadorian embassy. This is a timeline of events and just some background information on J.A., which we already know. Now, my friend Methods had sent me over a tweet that he posted. This is post number 3225. DOJ coordination with UK regarding declass of FISA. Think plane tracking. I know that some people had suggested the DOJ plane that went to the UK and then left could have possibly had JA on it already. Maybe this story right here about his expulsion is a cover. Perhaps he's already left. But it was stated in the article already that the U.S. already has an agreement with the U.K. for his arrest, and expulsion from the embassy would put Mr. Assange at risk of extradition to the United States. Perhaps he's not at risk of being extradited. Perhaps he is being saved. He's being brought here so that he can testify, because no one knows better than J.A. whether or not they colluded with the Trump campaign or the Russians. We're going to be keeping a close eye on this story, and like I said, I've got some people who are going to be on the ground at the embassy. We may have some interesting information that we release at another boom. Evidence shows that Joe Biden got the Ukrainian prosecutor fired who was investigating his son, Hunter Biden. After leaving office in 2017, Vice President Joe Biden bragged about strong-arming the government of Ukraine to fire its top prosecutor. Joe Biden made the remarks during a meeting of foreign policy specialists. Biden said he threatened Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko in March 2016 that the Obama administration would pull $1 billion in U.S. loan guarantees, sending the former Soviet republic toward insolvency if he didn't immediately fire Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin. Biden suggested during his talk that Barack Obama was in on this threat. On Wednesday, John Solomon revealed what Biden did not tell his audience. Joe Biden had Poroshenko fired because he was investigating Joe Biden's son, Hunter. Poroshenko was investigating $3 million in funds that were being transferred out of Ukraine and into accounts in the United States at that time. Joe Biden had him fired. John Solomon joined Hannity to drop this bomb on the Biden family. Let's take a listen.
The prosecutor that he demanded gets fired, or he will not give them $1 billion, and they got 6 hours to make a decision, and he's on tape, as you just heard, bragging. Hang on, I gotta fix my tie. He's on tape there bragging how he got the guy fired. Well, who was that prosecutor investigating at that moment? John Solomon.
Yep, you're right. At that very moment, Ukrainian authorities tell me they were preparing to request an interview with Hunter Biden to question him about more than $3 million of funds that were being transferred out of Ukraine into accounts in the United States tied to Hunter Biden and his company. And when the vice president intervened, the prosecutor got fired. They moved the case out of the prosecutor's office to another agency. They shut it down, and it was swept under the rug, never to be investigated again.
Okay, so his son was being investigated. Do we know how much money? Now, I understand his son was actually on the Air Force Two, right?
This is going to China. That's a different trip. Yeah, Peter Schweitzer did some great work back about a trip, I think it was in 2014, where Hunter Biden went on the same trip with his dad to China and walked away with a big payday in China as well. So there's a pattern here of Hunter Biden being in the countries where the vice president has a foreign policy portfolio and somehow walking off with some nice paydays.
Okay, so they're walking off with a nice payday. Hunter Biden obviously is there in China on Air Force Two, at least in that one instance. As Peter Schweitzer talks about. But in this particular case, so the vice president of the United States tells them, you fire the prosecutor, and we know beyond any doubt that that prosecutor that he's bragging about, that he got fired, or he was going to use American taxpayer money as leverage, that he did it to save his son from the prosecutor who was investigating him?
That's certainly what the Ukrainian authorities believe. And they're telling me tonight, Sean, that they've been trying to get this information to the U.S. Justice Department for more than 6 months and have not yet been able to get a receptive audience. But they have a lot more evidence than what they told me in the interviews in this column. And I think that they're very concerned that a sovereign nation, the United States, interfered in a legitimate investigation. And it isn't the first time, they say. They said this was a regular practice of the U.S. Embassy to get involved in their criminal investigations and tell them who they could and couldn't prosecute.
Do we know how much money we're talking about here?
Well, we know for sure because FBI, separate of the Ukrainian investigation, the FBI introduced records in a trial last year in New York City that showed that Hunter Biden's company got at least $3 million, actually a little bit more, almost closer to $3.2 million from Burisma Holdings, the natural gas company in Ukraine between 2014 and 2015. The very same time that Joe Biden was in charge of all U.S.-Ukraine relations. Remember, President Obama gave him a special job and said, you take care of this Ukrainian crisis, you're my designee for it. So while Joe Biden's overseeing it, his son is walking in with his cash.
I think we have a lot to investigate, and I think crazy, creepy Uncle Joe has bigger problems besides him grabbing and kissing anybody and rubbing noses and smelling hair. John Solomon.
This is a very interesting development, and it ties into the article I read the other night about Joe Biden's ties to the organized crime here in America. And I would certainly say that the way he's run his game and the way that the Democrats and, frankly, the entire swamp has is very, very similar to how organized crime does it. Threats, intimidation, definitely not the way that we want things to be done here in America. I am sick and tired of having organized crime, criminals running our government. Now, lastly, I have a thread from my friend MindFuror. This is very interesting here. So, Ashville, North Carolina. This sleepy city has a deep, dark past that even I was not aware of. My colleague, Jaru369, right there, James True, subtly pointed me in the right direction, and I'd like to share some findings. Here's some recent news from there. A former Superior Court judge was arrested at a hotel near the Biltmore House and charged with sex crimes against minors. More recent Asheville news. Charity leader retires after CNN probe. The executive director of a prominent North Carolina charity is leaving his post after a CNN investigation this week detailed the account, let's take a look, of sex crimes. A 47-year-old woman said he abused her when she was his teenage student. Wow. Looks like we've got a theme here in Asheville. Right off the bat, Asheville joins the somewhat exclusive club of cities with an obelisk prominently featured. There's more on the obelisk towards the end of the thread, but let's take a look right here. Very interesting. Let's see. Why did a lot of major cities around the world contain obelisks? The obelisk symbolizes the sun god Ra, and during the brief religious reformation of Akhenaten was said to be a petrified ray of the Aten, the sun disk. It was also thought that the god existed within the structure. There we have another one in Las Vegas, right near Mandalay Bay. And of course, the obelisk in Washington, D.C. The Mount Hermon Masonic Lodge of Asheville was chartered on December 13, 1848, counting numerous civic and political leaders among their lodge. The Mount Hermon Lodge was instrumental in the creation of 40 other Masonic temples in the region. In fact, the Mount Vernon Masonic Lodge and the Biltmore House were built by the same man, Richard Sharp Smith. Now, in 2011-2012, there was a controversy in Buncombe County, North Carolina, over Bibles being distributed to students. Many of the opposers were pagans, Wiccans, and witches. I learned there are noted covens operating in Asheville. About Coven Oldenwild. Coven Oldenwild was founded on Samhain 1994 and meets in Asheville, North Carolina, in the heart of the Blue Ridge Mountains. We were a group of witches and use ancient magical principles in the betterment of life, the continuance of the universe, and the glorification of the gods. Such principles are based on the wisdom of the Wiccan Rede, and it harm none, do what ye will, and upheld by the observance of the traditional Wiccan laws. Members of Oldenwild specialize in different magical talents, contributing to ritual elements such as spells, chants, songs, and dances. Though we believe in many gods, we especially esteem the Lady of Night, Hecate, and the Lord of the Hunt, Herne. Appreciative of its scope, we work with time, using prophecy and divination, astral planes, and past life regression both to learn from history and to be forewarned of the future. We show our reverence for time by conducting magical working meetings in accordance with the cycles of the moon and sun. Here are their special days. We got Samhain, October 31st, Yule, December 21st, Imbolc, February 2nd, Ostara, the spring equinox, March 21st, Beltane, May Day on May 1st, Litha, summer solstice, June 21st, Lugansa, Lamas on August 1st, and Mabon, fall equinox, on September 21st. They are a nonprofit. Wow, we've heard about nonprofits very recently. Here is, wow, how did they get nonprofit status? What is it they do? Coven Oldenwild, established 1994, Asheville, North Carolina, located at 113 Clinton Avenue. The occult crown jewel of this area is the Biltmore Estate, former property of noted Illuminatist George W. Vanderbilt. Our favorite Annan drops an Annan research that has identified the Biltmore Pool as a nexus of evil as indicated by the art it inspires. We definitely have talked about this before. Hi, Smokey. My cat. Smokey's here. She never shows up for the broadcasts. You guys remember this. Red shoes. Children. Bathing suits. Oh, there it is right there. The Biltmore Pool Room is the focal point of many unexplained events. It is rumored that insane laughter emanates from the main drain in the dead of night, and that a woman in black haunts the room. Given the things we know, it takes on greater significance. Not to be outdone, nearby is Seeley's Castle, Overlook Mansion, another storied Asheville property shrouded in rumors of satanic ritual and sacrifice. Fred Seeley, the owner, was the builder of the Oak Grove Park Inn. The history of Seeley's Castle, also known as the Overlook Mansion in Asheville, North Carolina, is steeped in rumors of dark and disturbing affairs befitting of a place long reputed to be a location for satanic rituals and sacrifices of the rich, elite, and powerful Satanists that populate Asheville and the surrounding region. It seems that little is known about the castle, considering its age. It was built in 1912 to 1914 for Fred Loring Seeley on 10 acres at the top of Sunset Mountain. It has seen 5 known owners. The Seeleys lived there until Mr. Seeley's death in 1942 at age 70. In 1949, his wife, Evelyn Grove Seeley, whose father had given them the land, sold the castle to Asheville Biltmore College, who occupied the property until they outgrew it in 1961. The third owner was Mr. Jerry Sternberg, who made several improvements with plans to open it as a museum, which he never achieved. He then turned the property over to Overlook Christian Ministries in the late 1970s. Overlook was a full gospel ministry that believed in speaking in tongues and other gifts of the Pentecost, which many claim may be the root of the rumors of Satanism. The owners of Overlook wrote a book about their ministry called A Castle in the Kingdom. Located at 710 Town Mountain Road, a drive said to be adorned with the mansions of the area's rich and powerful, Seeley's Castle can only be glimpsed through the woods from a distance, or at the entrance guarded by metal gates and surveillance cameras. It is said the castle is inhabited by a religious order, and no visitors are allowed through the gates. The Grand Bohemian Hotel, modeled after a Grand European hunting lodge, features a motif of stags and antlers throughout. This reminded me of the Rothschild Black Forest human hunting parties. There are Roman busts in the decor as well. Note the fleur-de-lis in the chandelier. Creepy. The Grand Bohemian boasts a bar and grill called the Red Stag Grill. The hotel was also the location of the filming of a trailer for Serafina and the Twisted Staff. Long regarded as one of the finest luxury hotels in Asheville, North Carolina, Grand Bohemian Hotel Asheville combines Tudor-style architecture with boutique amenities. Not only does this enchanting alchemy translate to exceptional stays, it also makes the property an ideal setting in which to film the trailer for Serafina and the Twisted Staff. The book is set within the legendary Biltmore Estate, home to the 178,926 square foot chateau-inspired Biltmore House. The private home is the largest in the country and was built by the Vanderbilt family during the 19th century. The hotel's location, near the Biltmore Estate, coupled with its own unique architecture, made it a natural choice for filming the trailer. Fans of the book can immerse themselves in Serafina's world when they visit this Asheville boutique hotel. The mysterious stone arches of the hotel's cavernous spaces, the majestic chandeliers over a Bosendorfer piano, the dramatically illuminated Red Stag Grill, all of these spaces set the stage for a trailer that captures the spine-tingling excitement of the book. Serafina and the Twisted Staff is a best-selling Harry Potter-style series of books involving a young girl, the Biltmore Estate, and no joke, shape-shifting mountain lions called catamounts. Recommended for ages 8 and up. Read the last paragraph in the summary. Deep in the forest, she comes face to face with the evil infecting Biltmore and discovers its reach is far greater than she'd ever imagined. All the humans and animals on the Blue Ridge Mountains are in terrible danger. For Seraphina to defeat this new evil before it engulfs her beloved home, she must search deep inside herself and embrace the destiny that has always awaited her. The Grove Park Inn, built by father of modern Ashville Edwin Wiley Grove to rival the notoriety of the Biltmore in 1913. Pick included is advertising for Grove's product, which at one point sold more bottles than Coca-Cola, fat as pigs. The inn has remained in contentious operation since Grove first opened it. George Gershwin, Harry Houdini, F. Scott Fitzgerald, and even President Hussein have all stayed at the Grove Park. Known for its elegance and comfort, the Grove Park hosts several world-class restaurants and a superior spa on site. It's a beautiful, relaxing, romantic inn that you would never want to leave, and according to legend, one guest never did leave. Ooh, yes. 4. Make children's and adults as fat as pigs. Grove's Tasteless Chill Tonic. Why would you want to do that? Huh. E.W. Grove personally fixed the site for the Grove High School and convinced T.P. Jernigan to donate 17.5 acres on Jernigan Heights, formerly known as McCampbell Heights, the highest point in West Tennessee. For the school's campus, the cornerstone for E.W. Grove Henry County High School was laid in a Masonic ceremony on June 26th, following a parade from downtown Paris, and was reported as a great day for Henry County. The school opened in September in the City Hall's library and council room until Grove Tower, the school's first building, was completed. The school was the first privately endowed public high school in Tennessee. Clovis and Ashley Chappell were brothers and the school's first co-principals. At one point in 1917, the architect of Grove Park Inn, resident of Seeley's Castle and son-in-law of E.W. Grove, Fred Seeley, purchased Biltmore Estate Industries from Edith Vanderbilt. What the Grove Park lacks in dark aura, it makes up for in historical significance and notable clientele. During the Cold War, it was selected in 1956 to house SCOTUS and the Judiciary Branch in the event of a nuclear attack in the U.S. Guests range from William Jennings Bryan to Michael Jordan, from Helen Keller to John D. Rockefeller. In addition, 10 presidents have been guests at Grove Park. Let's take a look at the presidents. William Howard Taft, Woodrow Wilson, Calvin Coolidge, Herbert Hoover, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Dwight D. Eisenhower, Richard M. Nixon, George H.W. Bush, William J. Clinton, and Barack Hussein. Asheville has quite a unique haunted history. There are many local legends and ghosts reported in the area. Top 9 most haunted places in Asheville, North Carolina. Apparently, a group spends nights in the haunted Riverside Cemetery pretending to be zombies. Riverside Cemetery is allegedly haunted by soldiers killed in the 1865 Battle of Asheville. Here was an unsettling find. Asheville is apparently home to a religious organization called 12 Tribes. This Reddit link describes the 12 Tribes experience. Very dark and cultish. I wonder if that's the 12 Tribes of Israel, or if that's what they're just named after. Finally, something I'd like to add. I came across some material that made some pretty alarming claims of a satanic group operating in the American Southeast. Asheville is named therein as the pagan Mecca of this region. Yes, thankfully God is also there, and many wonderful miracles have occurred in these mountains of the Bible Belt of America's Southeast. There are many fine Christians living in this region as well, but it is a far past time for the untold stories to be heard as well. There are many lost youth in that pagan Mecca of America's Southeast, Asheville, North Carolina. The battle is always raging for who will own and control them, the power of Satan or the power of Jesus Christ. I know this from many years of working among and interviewing these young people and hearing of their tragic experiences of being raised in multi-generational occult households throughout this region. Another young woman recounted to me in a church in downtown Asheville one day her lifelong experience with grim Satanism in the Asheville area. Her family belonged to the Power People Coven, consisting of the self-professing rich, elite, and powerful of that region. The mansions of the rich and powerful are found on Town Mountain Road and also in the Biltmore Forest area. Many of these mansions have been home to human sacrifices. This Power People Coven consisted of many of the wealthy and influential, including doctors and brain surgeons, judges, many lawyers, DAs, mayors, and other various prominent people throughout that city. Through years of research, I discovered that every city across America has her own Power People Coven that secretly rules over the city from behind the shadows. Ashville is but a microcosm of what is happening in many other cities and regions across America in varying degrees. Yes, vampirism is also found in the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee. In fact, vampirism is where the goth look comes from. Goths have that pale, pasty white look on their faces for a reason. Drinking blood creates anemia in the person doing it. Anemics have very pale complexions as a result. This is the origin of the name of the hidden town of Batcave right outside Asheville, as well as the neighboring Transylvania County, a home of incestuous activity for over 200 years. Even DHHS services in Asheville are infiltrated by Satanists. They use their positions in the Department of Health and Human Services to seize children from poorer homes in that county. The pretense they use is that the home is too poor to take adequate care of the children. What frequently happens then to those seized children? There's a reason Hussein and his evil priestess wife visit the 12 Bones barbecue each time they come to town, which is more often than is publicized. How can you explain restaurant owners who go from penniless hippies to selling their restaurant and moving to a mansion on a small island in Hawaii in just 3 years? I am sourcing this material to provide an idea as to what is being alleged. I cannot confirm it. A lot of it is graphic and very disturbing. I will not link here. If even partly true, Asheville, North Carolina is under a very wicked spell. You guys can go to this. I'm going to leave this link in the description. It just so happens that Asheville is perfectly situated between two major ley lines that stem from the Bermuda Triangle, with the Vance Monument, the obelisk downtown, being the exact midway point between the two. Wow. Once you scratch the surface of this nondescript small town in the Blue Ridge Mountains, you find a hidden dark world quite shocking for a town less than 100,000. How many more Ashvilles are out there? Ooh, look at this. Hat tip to HMCD 123, tunnels under Asheville. It has long been rumored that there was once a vast network of secret tunnels under Asheville, North Carolina. Let's take a look at that. Ooh, a passage between the Masonic Temple, mysterious door under Pax Tavern. Where did Rat Alley come from? Underground bathrooms. So it looks like they started to build a subway, but then they stopped because of the Great Depression, and they never finished it. So what were these tunnels used for? Very interesting. Another great thread from MindFuror. Thanks a lot, buddy. I appreciate that. Thanks for sending that to me. Well, if you guys aren't already, please go and follow my friend MindFuror. He does great work. He is always putting together excellent digs. Really, really good stuff from this guy. He's a great researcher. Well, I think that's all we've got for you today. As always, I am Red Pill 78, the corruption detector, and this has been your Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless.